Welcome, world. This is Manager Dan Money with myself, Ben, and my co-host, Malcolm. Malcolm, it's another, as you would say, Money Monday. Money Monday. And this is the show where we trade in personal financial advice for pop culturally relevant and entertaining conversations about money. It's a lot going on, as we always do. Talk a little bit about what's going on in the world. Right. A lot of juicy scandal and things happening in the world, particularly in the political world of the United States of America.
Anytime you use scandal and politics in the same sentence, I assume Shonda Rhimes is part of this conversation.
In this instance, it is not.
She couldn't write it this good.
She couldn't write it this good if she tried. Real life is stranger than truth, or truth is stranger. What's the...
I don't know.
Anyway.
Life imitating art, art imitating life.
Art imitating life, and vice versa. Of course, we're talking about all the stuff going on with the presidential administration. James Comey, former FBI director, testifying. And I guess now Jeff Sessions is getting ready to testify. It's like all this stuff that's going on when it comes to politics. Mm-hmm. Has put scandals in its last season. Shonda Rhimes show on ABC.
I think the finale already came on, right?
So it was the finale for the season, but I think they're going into their final season.
Oh, okay. So I think one more.
They got one more season, but it's like you really can't compete with this.
They lost me a while ago.
That's true.
So I'm a House of Cards fan too.
Okay, and how's it comparing?
I can't really get that much into it because the first couple of seasons of House of Cards, it was always that can't happen, right? And then it was like hold my beer, and so now it's kind of like I don't know what to say is reality and which one is Netflix. So.
At the very least, there's some real life entertainment, real life soap opera happening. And then also, kind of connected to that, former President Obama has not forgotten about the American people, apparently.
Let's hope so.
I don't think he has. But you know why? Because he had, quote, unquote, lunch last week with the Prime Minister of Canada.
Why do you have the quote, unquote, lunch?
It's just quote, unquote, lunch.
We can obviously see these guys sitting having a conversation at noontime.
They're having a conversation at noontime.
That equals lunch.
They had lunch, but you never know what else lunch entails. So, lunch. Thanks, President Obama, for, keeping us in mind and not taking all the way a huge vacation.
Okay.
But as we always do here on Manager Dan Money, it is time for headlines. The story we pulled for this week's headlines is actually really relevant for a group of people who will be graduating from college in this span of time. So they might have graduated in May, and they're off on into their adult lives, trying to find jobs and doing other things. The headline read, "The Best and Worst Places to Start a Career." It was a June 1st article by CNBC, which reported on rankings from WalletHub, which outlined the most and least livable, quote unquote, American cities in the United States for recent college grads. After landing a job, 62% of grads also said they expect to stay in the place that they live for at least 3 years. And this was according to an Accenture 2017 college graduate employment study. So real quick, three quarters of new grads, according to this particular study, are willing to relocate to a different state to score the right job, according to that report. And the rankings that WalletHub did were decided using a combination of a couple things, including the availability of entry-level jobs, monthly average starting salary, so like how high is the starting salary for those entry-level jobs, and then also workforce diversity, average commute, also the single scene, and then also the fun factor. So the fun factor was like going to bars, restaurants, and parks nearby. So before we go, so what do you think were the top 10 places for grads according to WalletHub? Like, what would be your instincts?
What would I have assumed?
Yeah, what would you have assumed?
Places like Minneapolis, Minnesota, maybe Kansas City. Places like middle America where the cost of living is like a fourth of where it is on the two coasts.
Right.
Texas, probably, places like that.
Absolutely. So the top 10 places for grads to actually live, according to this particular, review of sorts by WalletHub, was Salt Lake City was number one. Salt Lake City, Utah.
Wouldn't have guessed that.
Number 2 was Orlando, Florida.
I've been hearing that one for a while.
Orlando seems like it'd be a kind of cool place to live. Austin, Texas, which has gotten a lot of pub and hype over the last several years.
I hear it's getting expensive too.
It's trying to turn itself into like a coastal city.
Right. I guess no, not technically either.
It can't be, but it's trying to have that same appeal. Number 3 was Grand Rapids, Michigan.
Okay.
Number 4 was Temple, Arizona. And then Atlanta, Georgia was number 5.
They've been saying that about Atlanta for 20 years.
They've been trying to sell Atlanta.
When is Atlanta going to stop coming up? Like, when is it done being on the come up?
Right, absolutely. Atlanta's still on the come up. And then also number 6 was Miami, Florida. Denver, Colorado was number 7. Excuse me, I have it written twice, so I missed something. Irving, Texas was number 9. And then number 10 was Madison, Wisconsin.
Yeah, no, I would have not expected. I mean, Atlanta, I would have assumed
was on there
Orlando,
somewhere.
I might have accidentally guessed.
Okay.
One of the major cities in Texas, not Irving, Texas.
Yeah, certainly not Irving.
I thought the only thing in Irving, Texas was the old Cowboy Stadium. But, you know, like 2 of those, I would have been 2 for 10.
Right, absolutely. I don't think you could have really guessed this list. Question: if you had to do graduating out of undergrad again, and you had to move to a city, and it couldn't be like a coastal big city, like can't be San Francisco, can't be Chicago, can't be New York, can't be LA, where would you be okay with moving?
I would be in Miami in a heartbeat.
Okay, like ex-Miami out.
It's on the list. You can't take
Miami's
Miami from me
cheating.
now. Why?
Miami's cheating.
Okay, Fort Lauderdale then. that's what I would be.
Then you could just drive down to Miami.
I mean, really, that's what you would get out of me, though.
Okay.
Either something on the East Coast
Right.
that I could still be like remotely close to
Right.
what I know,
Right.
or somewhere on the West Coast that is like walking distance from a beach.
Right.
Those are the only 2 options.
Okay.
You know.
Literally, as I'm thinking about it, sitting here in this moment, I'm thinking, I mean, maybe I could avoid being depressed in Seattle
How?
because of the rain. You know,
But how
like
do you
as-
avoid being depressed?
I
It's
don't-
raining and you're in student loan debt. You know, like, life, you know, I don't know. I
Right.
need to be somewhere sunny.
Well, then I don't know what the answer would be if I couldn't. If it was Seattle, I mean, maybe I would be in Miami too.
See,
So
me, you, and Uncle Luke.
absolutely. So what do you think? There are some great places to get that balance of like professionalism and then also like cost of living.
Well, so here's something interesting though that I've heard and seen as a trend. Real estate developers are now building entire neighborhoods with millennials in mind.
Oh wow!
And so
okay.
when I say with millennials in mind, I mean they're even in like Minneapolis, Minnesota, or Austin, Texas. They're building communities with walkable bars and dog parks and you know places that sell avocado toast, and, you know, stupid stuff like that I hear
Right.
people accuse us of all the time. They're really building up these neighborhoods with all of those amenities. If they're not in a townhome community, they're in an apartment community.
Right.
And so it's places that your starter home will be.
Okay.
All the stuff you're going to spend money on is right there in that. So it doesn't necessarily matter which major city you're in. They can build it up out of the ground, kind of like Dubai if they want to. Like they'll just build it from scratch and people will come because it's affordable.
Right.
So
right. That makes sense. So what's some of the benefits of like, in addition to like lower cost of living when you're living in like a not as desired city, like some of the lists we just ran off? What are some of the benefits of like living in those kind of places?
I don't know. I mean, like lower cost of living also says lower income to me.
Okay.
Like, and you know, it's proportional, right? But so
That's true.
If you say lower cost of living between DC, New York, San Francisco,
Right.
and then Charlotte.
Right.
Yes, the cost of living in Charlotte is lower than the 3 of those other cities,
Right.
but I'm also going to make less.
Right.
So, you know, everything is relative.
Absolutely.
Unless you're going to pay me DC rate of pay and move me to Charlotte or Atlanta, then is the trade-off really there?
Highly
You know what I
unlikely. Highly unlikely. We want to remind folks that you're listening and watching Manage Your Damn Money. If you have questions of us that you'd like to answer, Malcolm is a licensed financial advisor. You can send us an email at info@manageyourdamnmoney, and we'll put that question live here on the show, and we'll talk about it. Really quickly before we go to a break, today's episode is actually a very interesting, basic thing that we all have to deal with. We've been promoting it on social media as we always do, but we're talking about the ins and outs of buying a car and how to save on car related expenses. So we're going to talk about a couple things, like we're going to talk about our first cars, we're going to talk about how much it costs to maintain those cars, and then we're going to actually get into the debate of whether we prefer leasing or buying a car, which is a really big thing in terms of the way that people contextualize how they're supposed to buy a car. And I've heard a lot of different things on on social media in terms of what people think, and it's all across the spectrum. So we're gonna take a really quick music break and hear this track from Mr. Beats by Beeman. You can follow his music at Beats by Beeman on Instagram. You are listening and watching Manage Your Damn Money. We will be right back. We are back here on Manage Your Damn Money with myself, Ben, and my co-host, Malcolm. Today's conversation at hand, the ins and outs of buying a car and how to save on car-related experiences. Malcolm, you know that lately we've been talking a lot about investments and property ownership here on MYDM, but there's one basic thing that everyone has to deal with, and that's when it's time to get a new whip, a new car, a new vehicle. Insurance, gas, monthly payments, down payments, and maintenance all factor into the full cost of owning a car. We also know that there is an ongoing debate about owning versus leasing, and we'll cover it today. So real quick, before we get into that, because we're talking about cars, I felt like this was a perfect opportunity. Only other opportunity you ever get to do this is with your like grandkids.
Okay.
Son, let me tell you about my first vehicle. It was named Bessie.
Was it named Bessie?
My car has never had names.
Mine, yeah, me neither.
You never named your car?
No.
Okay. So real quick, what was your first car, Malcolm?
The first car I bought was a 1996 Chrysler Sebring.
1990. You bought it?
Yeah.
Okay.
$1,800.
A Sebring.
Bought it online.
And right.
Like I met somebody on Craigslist who was selling the car. Went out to his place and yeah.
Okay. And for those who are watching, we have a picture of my first car, which is a 98 Toyota Camry. We actually don't have a Sebring. I didn't do that graphic, unfortunately. But my first car was a 1998 Toyota Camry LE. It had a V6 engine. It was awesome. But I got hit in a car accident I was hit by a drunk driver with 3 of my friends in the car. And we were okay.
I'm glad you're still here.
Yeah, I'm still here. It was quite an ordeal. But that insurance check paid for by the guy's insurance, not mine.
Okay.
Allowed me to fulfill a long life dream. Since 8th grade, I saw the movie Fast and the Furious, the first one.
Okay.
And I was like, oh my gosh.
So you got your Honda Civic with the blue flame spitting out the back and the orange racing stripe going down the side?
Almost. I got a Honda Prelude.
Close.
With 18-inch rims.
Close. 18s on a Prelude?
18s on a Prelude.
Okay.
This is it.
Okay.
This is it. It was sweet. They called it in college the Yard Mobile because I had license plates that said the Yard because I actually did a radio show in college called The Yard.
Wow, look at you.
Yeah.
So you didn't name that car?
I guess it had a name because the license plate.
Okay. I was going to say, I feel like you had to have a name for it before you even paid for it.
My friends, I got it from a private sale. My friends, I had about $5,000 that was given to me, and that's about what I paid for the car. And anyway, that was a dream. It had like it had the whole like
from the 96
Camry. It was very much a step up, and it had the whole like exhaust on there, so it made that ho 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 ho.
See, I call that 96 Camry, I call it the next door neighbor car. Because like everybody, no matter what neighborhood you live in, your next door neighbor had that Camry in any boring color possible, red, gold, or blue.
Right.
Everybody's next door neighbor had that.
Absolutely. So Malcolm, what was your second car? Which is kind of ironic when I saw what your second car was, but what was your second car?
My second car was a 2004 Nissan 350Z.
That sounds real.
And it was like the best thing to ever happen to me at the time that I got it.
So Malcolm and I were both driving around in college in black 2-door coupes.
So, dude, as you know, I used to work at a car dealership, and what happened is I showed up for work one day early,
Uh-huh.
and so I just happened to be strolling around in the back in the shop.
Okay.
And in the space where folks come to trade in, where they park the cars that folks trade in, was that 350Z
Oh, wow.
sitting there. And ironically, it's a 6-speed, and I didn't know how to drive a stick shift at the time. So I literally learned how to drive a stick shift that night so that I could come back and buy that car the next morning and take it home.
This is hilarious. You know what? I didn't share this previously. I also learned how to drive a stick with that Prelude.
Buy that
I
for
didn't.
the Prelude?
No, I literally
to get it home.
I did not know how to drive a stick when I got inside of it, and I just figured it out. And I was stalling for a little while, like maybe a week, and then I finally got the hang of it. And then last detail. This is really weird because we're like at now 3 different points where Malcolm and I were both going through the same thing. Your license plate. You had personalized plates as well.
I did. I had.
What was it?
So I had the Malcolm X, because North Carolina you get 8 characters.
Okay.
So I had a North Carolina plate that said Malcolm X on the back of my 2004Z.
People knew who they were going to be dealing with.
People knew, yeah. So,
you rolled up.
There was no mistake in my car rolling through the yard. Like I had a 15-inch sub in the back.
Oh my gosh.
I had that the whole thing.
Okay, so
What a time.
What a time, exactly. So like, was it expensive? Because these were both obviously used cars.
Yeah.
How was it like keeping up on the maintenance with them?
Terrible.
Okay.
So for whatever reason, I'm pretty hard on cars anyway. So I mean, the maintenance of that clutch in that car, as you can imagine, or like you can only put synthetic oil in it, and you got to get premium gas.
Yeah,
these are all the things they don't tell you at the time you're buying the car. And I mean, in this case, it was my own fault because I was the guy who sold myself the car. But those are the things you don't really pay attention to because you're just so excited, like, oh my God, I gotta get this.
Right.
And that's essentially my reaction. I was like, I don't care what it takes.
Right.
Fortunately, it was a pretty steep discount because again, I worked there, so. I got it for the low, but still, like the additional cost, my insurance went up like 3 times what it normally would have been
after the Sebring.
Right. So I had a Honda Accord in between there, the Sebring, then I had a Honda Accord Coupe, and then I got the Z.
Okay.
And my insurance from the sensible Honda Accord to the 350Z was like something ridiculous. Like I was paying more in insurance than I'm paying for the car I have right now.
Oh, that's hilarious.
Like, ridiculous.
That makes sense. So it's interesting because in a way, you and both myself had a dream car, albeit dream cars from earlier in our lives.
Mm-hmm.
What do we feel about people who have a dream car now, and what you should be doing about the idea of that dream car now that we're like adults, that we're like working adults, and like is the dream car even allowed anymore until like
me personally, I guess it could be if I wanted it.
Okay.
I went the opposite direction. So same as you, somebody hit me and totaled my car. Okay. Fortunately, I was just fine. Went to work that same day. And, it was like physically, like nothing ever happened. Emotionally, I was a wreck. But so I ended up taking the insurance money and used it to buy a Nissan Altima, a practical, sensible, this guy's responsible car. Right. And here's my rule for car buying: a car that I could pay for within 3 years. Okay. So my whole reasoning behind that was I just didn't want to be in a car payment forever.
Did you buy it? Did you buy your current car used?
I bought my current car used. Okay. Again, got a pretty good deal on it. But still, my rule was I need to buy something that I'm not going to have to pay a whole lot of money for gas. Right. And I need to be able to own it within 3 years.
Okay, like excellent. So that's an interesting like rule that you have in terms of being able to pay it off. And that's just your own personal rule. Right. What are some other things?
Yeah, it's not based in anything. Other than I don't want to.
Just what seems reasonable to you. What are some other cost considerations that come along with like ownership of this car or that car?
So as I mentioned, you can always, before you actually sign on to purchase a car, call your insurance company and just tell them, hey, I'm considering buying this car. Here's the year, make, model, and have them tell you what it would do to your insurance. Right. Because if it's that significant, you need to really consider, is this extra couple $100s a month? In some cases, it really is that much. Right. Is this extra couple $100s a month worth it? Or what's the difference in gas mileage? Maybe you're going from like a little Honda Civic or a Corolla up to like a Tahoe, right? Now you're paying 3 times as much in gas to fill up that SUV from, the smaller the smaller sedan or whatever. So, things like that you definitely want to keep in mind. And then I mentioned before maintenance on it. So oil changes for luxury cars. A lot when you say dream car, I'm assuming you mean maybe something German.
Right.
A lot of those you have to put synthetic oil in them.
Right.
You have to do premium gas
Absolutely.
in them, and when you go to get maintenance done on them, you have to do it at the dealership that they, So those are things you've got to take into consideration too.
Right. So you sold cars through college, which we always come back across, making some good money while going to class. What were some of the other missteps? Like you mentioned, people not necessarily having checked maybe like the insurance rate of the car that they have their eyes on and not realizing that it can go up significantly from anything that they had in the past. What were some other missteps people took when it came to coming onto your lot and buying a car, whether it was for the financing process or choosing whatever car it was? Like, what were some missteps you saw people take?
So I think the number one rule, the golden rule of car buying to keep in mind for folks who walk on the lot is just because you can get approved for it does not mean you can afford it. And I don't say that in jest at all. I say that 100% seriously. Just because the guys in the back can work their financial wizardry to get you into that car does not mean that you can afford.
Let me see what I can do for you, Malcolm.
I mean,
just come on in the back.
So you walk in the door, and one of the very first questions that they're trained to ask you is, how much are you looking to spend?
Okay.
And they don't ask you how much are you looking to spend in terms of the sticker price of the car.
Right.
They ask you how much are you looking to spend per month. Because that's usually how people think about how they can afford to buy a car.
Absolutely.
Can I afford the payments on this thing?
Right.
Is all people care about.
Right.
And so they have all kind of. I mean, you can extend somebody's car payment now 84 months, where it used to be 60 was the cap.
Right.
And I'm telling you, I don't want to go any further than 36 months. You can now go double that.
Right.
Go all the way out to 84 months.
And now you're paying on a car that's not even worth what you're paying.
So by the time you finish paying off the car, you probably got a negative asset.
Right.
You're driving around at that point. So things like that need to be taken into consideration because aside from just the monthly payment, interest rate, length of term, all that kind of stuff matters too.
Absolutely. And a quick reminder: you're listening and watching Manage Your Damn Money with myself, Bennett, and Malcolm. So the debate that we kind of came across, which I think is a pretty, it's a hot, fun topic. Should you buy or lease your next car? And I think just sitting here, the two of us, we have two different situations. Like you own your Nissan now. Are you done? Are you done with that? Paying
Completely
with that?
Done with it.
So he's done paying with his Nissan, and then you have myself and my wife. So first of all, I got rid of my Prelude like years ago, right? Because the alternator went out and I didn't want to have it changed because it was pretty expensive. So I just got rid of it and decided I was going to rock on the bus and just bum off at the time, the girlfriend a ride here and there. So
the scrubbers again. No, I'm sorry. I had a flashback. My bad.
I was scrubbing it. So there's that. So then she had a BMW.
Okay.
And essentially, it was a huge ordeal. We took it to like the wrong shop, and they had the car for like 2.5 weeks. And she was like taking the Metro to work. It was a real huge drama.
And this is pre-Uber.
This is when Uber was around, but this was like it was unreasonable to actually do that daily to and from work. So we had a really bad experience with a car that she was making payments on. And it was high payments, and it was like, this is the experience we're getting with this really, high-end vehicle. Let's just get we went in to get a new car or look at new cars, and then we went the direction of, do we want to buy it or lease it? And they showed us the buy numbers, and we started doing the exact same thing. How far out can we extend this? 36 months, 60 months, 72 months.
Right. And
then the numbers were still kind of absurd. And so then we asked the question, well, what happens if we lease it? And it's ironic. The monthly on the lease came within a dollar amount that we wanted to spend per month. And it was just
financial wizardry. Like I said.
And we felt the ability to turn the car in after 3 years and just be done with it rather than having to go into later in the years of the life of the car, messing with, taking it to the shop and all that kind of stuff. For us, having experienced what we just experienced, it was like, let's just do that, and then we know we don't have to always deal with the headache of, getting the car fixed and all that kind of stuff.
So I can completely understand that logic, right? And I can appreciate, the idea behind, I don't want to have to be responsible for this thing, basically, when it hits the fan.
Absolutely.
And from the opposite side of it, I look at it as, I'm a person who wants to own as many assets as I possibly can.
Okay.
At whatever point I leave this earth. Like that's my end goal. I want to be the monopoly man.
Okay.
Just own as much stuff on the board as I possibly can.
Having people paying you rent.
But aside from that, I don't look at a car the same way I used to.
Okay.
I'm not the same guy that drove the Z
anymore,
because obviously style is not that important to me if I'm driving around in an Altima, right? So I look at it and say, that's one less thing on my monthly expenses that I have to worry about.
That's true.
I can buy a car that's within a range that I can pay for and then own it. And then until it hits the fan, I'm in that car for however long I need to. Plus, I've become one of those city folk that if I can't get there on the metro, I do some serious mental calculations and say, how badly do I really want to go to this place?
Absolutely.
So my car sits, in the garage at my place for, days and days anyway. Is that really a viable expense for me to go, toss the money out to drive a Mercedes or, what's the point to me?
That's true.
But, if you're a person who knows that within 3 to 4 years you're going to be out of that car, then yes, it makes sense for you to lease it. But for somebody like me who wants to drive it until the wheels fall off, then it makes more sense to hang on to it. And
absolutely. And the difference between obviously buying a car is much like buying a home. You can either pay cash for it, which is what I did with my Prelude, or you can get financing. So you can go to the dealership and they will, run your credit and do all those kinds of things and then get you a lender to actually lend you the full amount to pay for the car, and then you pay back that lender over time. That's like buying a car, cash or get a loan. And then also what leasing is essentially, when you boil it down, it's a long-term rental with mileage limits such that the car can be resold on the used car market after you finish with your mileage, and that's what we're on now. A Forbes piece that I pulled says 1/3 of car buys are actually now leases. So when you lease, your monthly payments are about 1/3 lower than if you were to buy the same model car with a 5-year loan, according to one recent case study. So real quick, you kind of encapsulated it really well. The benefits, we're just going to kind of look down the benefits of leasing and buying. So the benefits of leasing, lower payments, as I mentioned. Usually.
But keep in mind, the way to get those lower payments is you've got to put down money at the time you take on the lease.
That is true. That is one caveat. There's usually a down payment of some kind on the lease, and you don't get that money back.
Right.
Even if you wreck the car, I think you don't get that money back.
No.
You don't get that money back.
You once you so basically the way a lease works is you prepay the car company's depreciation for them.
Yes.
So the money you're putting down up front to get into that car is what they expect that the car will depreciate over the 24, 36, or even 39 now months that you'll have the car, and what it'll be worth when you bring it back to them, they fix it up and sell it as a certified pre-owned whatever. So that's essentially what it is.
Okay.
So, you got to consider that too. Do I have the cash on hand for a down payment
That's true.
for the lease program?
That's very true. Also, another benefit of leasing, you don't have to worry about surprise repairs. So your car doesn't suddenly need a new alternator and then you're having to put out $2,500 to get it fixed. And then for certain work situations, you can actually write off portions of your lease amount per month. Can be written off at tax time. So that's actually a benefit. Benefits of owning, obviously, it allows you to customize. So if you're into the exhaust pipes like I was a little earlier in life and still sometimes now, you can customize it. It's good if you want a particular model of car. So I think the only reason why I would buy another car now outright is to get back to a car that I always wanted. So a Honda S2000, I think.
Okay.
It's a 2-seater convertible. I like those. If I was in a position to I
don't even think they make it anymore.
They don't.
So you don't have the option to lease it.
You don't have the option to lease it, and that's the only way I would get a new car and buy it, whether cash or with financing, would be to get a nostalgic car like that.
So something else to keep in mind: you can only lease brand new cars.
Yes, yes.
I don't know that everybody knows that.
That's
so
true.
Forgive me if I'm just telling you something you already know, but you can only lease brand new cars, which means that if there is a specific car like you're talking about that you would like to get, that all of a sudden they discontinued it.
Right.
Well, then when you go to trade in whatever that thing is that you're driving, just know that's the end of that S2000 or whatever it is that your lease is. So, or when you come to trade it in and they give you the option to buy it at the end of that lease, then you know.
Toyota needs to bring back the Toyota Supra. But anyway, benefits of owning: you can customize. You can get a particular model, even if they don't make that model anymore, and you can get it on the used market. And then, as you said, Malcolm, you will own the car outright. And that's kind of like the main benefit that people specify when it comes to, you know, why you should own it. Because then you own it, you can ride it till the wheels fall off, and it's yours, and you don't have to pay any more after you finish the payments. Some cons of leasing: you'll be with the car for a short time, so only like 2 to 3 years, depending on how long your lease is.
Which some people prefer.
Yeah,
some people like to ride around in the new hotness,
in the fresh digs. You can't customize it, and you also have to maintain. I don't know if people know this. You also have to maintain the general appearance to avoid extra fees at the close of the lease.
Yes.
So you have to make sure there's no dings. It has to be in really good shape such that it can be taken immediately and kind of put on the resale market.
So there's an allowance for what's considered to be normal wear and tear.
Right.
But anything beyond that, just your average scuffs and, you know, whatever.
When we sat in there and did the lease, that idea seemed rather nebulous to me. The whole like beyond normal wear and tear, like that kind of like, that can mean different things to different people.
Oh, it's very subjective. So, you know, wash it before you take it back, catch them on a good day, all that kind of stuff. But yeah, it's very subjective.
Okay, excellent. And then finally, before we go to a quick music break, we have the cons of buying a car, especially when you're like financing it. You're taking out a loan when you finance a car, so that's kind of like nobody wants an extra loan or extra person to pay every month. And then outside of warranty programs that are available, and I find those warranty programs are really difficult to understand what is covered and what isn't.
Well, if you buy a new car, though, the warranty still comes with. The manufacturer's warranty comes with the car the same way it would when you're leasing.
I'll put it to you like this. Our car that we leased, I took it back to the dealership to get something really basic done. And they were going to charge me like $40 to get the wheel patched because there's like a leak. There's a slow leak that's been in there since we got the car.
Right.
And they were like, yeah, it'll be $40. I'm like, our stuff doesn't cover like that. And so I think that's one of the things like that's frustrating for me with looking at car warranty programs.
That's the gotcha.
That's the gotcha. And you can't possibly read through to see like, well, does it cover this? Does it cover that? Because that would take a lot of time. And then the final one, obviously depreciation of the car is a not a pro but a con. So that's interesting. Back and forth on that. We're going to take a really quick music break, hear another track from Mr. Beats by Beeman. But when we come back, we're going to continue the conversation at hand. We're going to talk about other options in car buying aside from financing and leasing. You're listening and watching Manage Your Damn Money with Ben Carter and Malcolm Etheridge. We will be right back. We're here, Manage Your Damn Money with Ben and Malcolm, having a really hilarious off-camera conversation. But real quick, I wanted to bring some of the comments in on what people felt about buying and leasing from social media.
Please.
A lot of different great comments. We have one from Ascensive, who said he bought cash for his car, and he's continuously saving for the next car and maintenance. He said tires, brakes, tie rods, engine mounts. It's gonna happen, and I think he means like you're gonna have to replace it if you buy a car. So he says he's always saving for those things. And
Maybe
that's his strategy.
I buy Japanese. I don't have. I'm serious. I don't have those kind of issues.
That's true. Manufacturers make a difference. And then we have, you're gonna find this one hilarious. Drewski to Skill says, and you gotta listen all the way through because it's kind of long. Bye. That is, if you're a millennial. I think leasing is for guys like Malcolm who are going to stay at their job for the next 10 years and take the same route to work every day. Throwing all the shade.
I'm appalled.
Social media is a rough place. But no one really is surprised when Malcolm said on the last podcast, you just stay at a job for at least 5 years to learn where the bathroom is. I'm shaking my head. In this fast-paced world, I think you can find all the bathrooms in about 3 weeks. And he says that he switches jobs every 2 to 3 years and has increased his salary by 10% each time. But then he says, getting back to the point, this is why he says bye. He went from a lease to having bought a car when he realized he needed to stop counting his miles and roam free so he doesn't miss out on any opportunities. I defended you, Malcolm. I said on the comment, I said, as you throw super shade at my co-host.
I appreciate that.
Hey, you're making an impact, Malcolm. Clearly.
You know what though? That means he's listening though.
Indeed.
So I'll say, Drewski, I will not go in and block you because at least we know that means that you're paying attention to the show.
Absolutely.
And we appreciate all of those of you who tune in.
Absolutely. And then we had a couple other comments. DMV Jules says, so years ago, my roommate decided to buy. They put down a down payment on an Audi, and someone else being reckless wrecked it. Insurance would not replace it. They cut him a check, but basically he would have to start over on the payments all over again, and his down payment went down the drain.
But that means pick better friends, not pick lease or buy a program.
So I took it as somebody like hit him.
I got my friend was driving my Audi stunting.
Oh, well, that could be it. And then he said he ended up getting that. She said he ended up getting an Acura because it was better on gas. And then finally we have VFX Maven. She says, I'm leasing for the first time. So far it's been fine, and I don't feel much difference other than reminders that my car needs maintenance. When I owned, I never kept up with that stuff, but leasing keeps me honest. Financial terms were favorable as well, but I guess that's because I manage my damn money. And then she put the crying face tears. See what I did there? Lastly, I get to change to a new thing every few years. Feels like a win for me right now, unless I'm buying an antique car, like I said just now.
Right.
So interesting thoughts.
I mean, I don't know that they swayed you from the leasing side and me from the buying side, but right. It is interesting to know kind of other people's perspectives. But I would just say, I really think either can fit into either living situation.
Okay.
So there's a case to be made for either or.
Okay.
For everybody.
Absolutely.
Right? Which doesn't necessarily, you shouldn't be looking for a definitive answer either way,
right.
Really. But I would just say consider all the factors.
Right.
Like, for example, as I mentioned, the majority of the time when you lease a car, you've got to put down a considerable amount of money.
Yeah, it's usually between like
$5,000, depending on how fancy and expensive the car is.
Right.
And then also, when you go to lease that car, you've got to have pretty decent credit. Right. To get approved for a leasing program.
Right. So there are high. You have to have high marks on your credit to qualify for a leasing program. That
matters a lot too.
Yeah.
And then when you go to buy a new car, if you're buying a brand new car, everybody knows how fast a new car depreciates as soon as you drive it off the lot.
Absolutely.
So consider that in your thought process too. And I will say to that, kind of my rule, I probably would never buy a brand new car.
Really? Okay.
Not even. I know that's hard for you to believe.
Not even when you've acquired all these assets and are swimming through your Scrooge McDuck.
I might buy a car dealership.
Okay.
But I don't know that I would buy a brand new car.
Okay.
But if I did find myself deciding to buy a brand new car, what I would do is buy the model the year before.
The prior year model.
Still brand new. It's got 2 or 5 miles on it. But because it's a year old, technically, you still get a good bit of the depreciation knocked off of the price of that car. Like if I bought a 2016 Nissan Altima today, I'm going to get brand new car,
right?
But I'm gonna pay a few $1,000s less because there's
right.
a whole nother model they're trying to push out now, and that kind of thing.
We have one more comment that I forgot to read. JC Media 787 says, I never buy new, and I never buy new. I keep my cars 10 years plus. Mind you, I'm not paying on a car all those years. Also, to me, leasing is the same thing as renting, and you don't have much to show for it at the end.
She must be buying a Japanese car.
Yeah, and JC Media is a guy actually. Thank you everybody who commented on our social media post. Real quick, what do you have like an idea of what like your fantasy car would be now?
My fantasy
like
car now.
If somebody was like, I'm gonna give you a car and I'll pay for everything and your insurance monthly, what would that car be? I'm literally trying to figure out what mine is.
Maybe
right
a
now.
Porsche Panamera.
Porsche.
You told me you paying for it. I'm going upscale.
Okay, that's fine.
A Porsche Panamera, dude. It's a 4-door sedan that drives like a 2-door 911. It doesn't get much better than that.
Okay.
That's where I'm going.
Very good, very good. That's the one that looks like a whale. It was like a hump.
All right, if you're being critical.
What's mine? Mine is gonna be one of the newer BMW like M3, M4s, the newer models.
Okay.
But anyway,
because of the exhaust noise.
That's probably it.
I figured.
So other options in car buying aside from financing and leasing, number one, you can always buy used,
right.
which is like the number one way to kind of avoid the full cost of a car. Buying used can help you find good value for your dollar. And then you also have to make sure that you negotiate when you go onto the lot. You have to be ready to negotiate. That's like
such a
really
dirty word. folks, you say negotiate and folks get nervous.
You have to outfox the fox being the salesperson like you. So you were a car salesperson. Was it a used car place or a used
cars?
It was used cars. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
So I was coming to quote unquote compete with someone like Malcolm. When you were impressed with somebody who came to buy a car, what were some of the things that they did in terms of their preparation to deal with you?
So I must qualify that the dealership that I worked for, and as soon as I say it, it'll give away where it was.
Okay.
They actually had a fixed pricing system.
Okay.
So we had zero control over the price of the cars, the quality of the cars, the availability of the cars, nothing. I was just the guy there to help get you the right selection, whatever. Okay. So you would get those people that came in and they had on their their best face and they were ready to fight and do battle. And, we had people that would walk out when we said we don't negotiate on cars because they came to beat the salespeople. Right. That was they were looking forward all week to getting up Saturday morning. They were there when the doors opened at 8 a.m. and they were ready to do battle with the salesperson and they weren't leaving. I have found myself to actually kind of be that person now too. Now that I'm on this side of
you
the
ready
table.
to do battle?
I actually enjoy going through that process and that song and dance.
Right.
Even though most people they think about buying a new car and having to deal with the salesperson and anxiety goes up.
Right.
But I would just say you got to be prepared. Mm-hmm. Like you can't just walk into any place if you're buying a house or a car or a boat. It doesn't matter. You can't just walk into any place and say I feel like I deserve $1,000 off because I won $1,000 off. Right. You know what I'm saying? So that matters too in the grand scheme of everything. Like you would have people that walked in that did their online research. Mm-hmm. They would say, I went on Edmunds.com or KBB or TrueCar or whatever.
Right.
And this is the data that I gathered, and here's what the computer and everybody else says that I should have to pay for this car.
Right.
You at least have to respect that person for putting in the effort and actually having a substantiated reason why they should be paying X that the market says, not your sticker price.
Right. And this is you're listening and watching Manager Dan Money with Ben and Malcolm. We're talking about other ways to buy a car, ways that you can lower the cost of your car. Another big one is trading in your old car to lower your down payment. Mm-hmm. So obviously, if you have a relatively new car or a newer-ish car, and even if you have like an old beat-up jalopy, as they used to call them, you can take those in, and people might work with you and give you a certain amount to go towards your down payment.
Sure. And a lot of times people will say, I don't want to trade my car in because they're undervaluing how much it's actually worth.
Right.
So I'm going to sell it myself.
Right.
And the thing I would just encourage everybody to consider is how much time and effort it's going to take to actually, have strangers coming to your house to look at your car, having your weekends tied up to show people the car and all that kind of stuff in the equation between do I sell it myself or do I trade it in? And I'm not advocating one way or another. I just make sure that you keep that in mind as you're making that decision.
Right. And then lastly, when considering financing options, one good thing that people always suggest is that you consider your relationship with your local bank or credit unions in particular. Credit unions have a really great track record. If you have had like a bank account there for a while, giving you a really straightforward loan or car loan with good terms, then you're in a position in that negotiation situation. You just come onto the lot with that check the credit union gave you. You write the amount in, and you essentially hold like a lot of power.
Yeah.
Because then you're not dealing with the negotiating of, well, what are the financing terms and what are the terms of this lender versus this lender? You're just walking in with a check.
But that kind of goes to that whole monthly payment thing I was talking about,
right?
Where they say we can get your payments into this range.
Absolutely.
And you're like, well, how much does a car cost?
Right.
Well, we can get your monthly payments into this range, and don't worry about what the MSRP is and everything else we tacked onto it. But
absolutely,
another thing to kind of keep in mind is you want to establish that relationship with your credit union for specific situations like that.
And we actually have a credit union account that we don't use at all. I imagine for one day maybe when that happens, we might be able to go that route. I don't. I've seen the credit union. I've never actually stepped inside of it.
Well, so people may not realize you can actually take the financing that the dealership offers you just to get the car off the lot.
Okay.
And then go to your credit union later and refinance the car. So if you walked in there and they offered you, let's say, 8% on whatever the car is, you can then go to your credit union a week later.
Right.
Car's still fairly new.
Right.
And they will refinance you down to, let's call it 5.
Right.
Now you've saved 3% every year on the interest you're paying on that 5 or 6 year car loan. That makes a pretty significant difference.
And that's actually a really cool strategy. And then also you always want to know, this is really big. When you do have an older car and it needs to get maintenance fairly often, you always want to make sure you're going to a mechanic or a car shop with good reviews, and avoid car shops that do like scamming stuff.
So not the dude in the alley that fixes cars on the side.
Well, actually, you know what's funny?
That knows how to talk with the cigarette hanging out the side of his mouth.
My best mechanic was a guy who I paid semi under the table in Hampton, Virginia, and he took care of both of my cars and would do stuff at a discounted rate. And my car always ran good after. What I'm saying is you can't just assume because a mechanic has a storefront that they know what they're doing. And I think that goes without saying. If you're willing to pay a premium to make sure that people don't mess around in your car, go to the place where you might have to pay a little bit more, but you always know that their work is going to be tip top of the line. We're going to take a really quick break, but when we come back, we're going to wrap up this show on car buying. And you are listening to Manage Your Damn Money with Ben and Malcolm. We're going to hear another track from Mr. Beats by Beeman. You can follow his music at Beats by Beeman on Instagram. When we come back, we're going to talk about lowering the cost of ownership on a car, and a couple other things that we've learned today. This is Manage Your Damn Money with Ben and Malcolm. We will be right back.
Welcome back to Manage Your Damn Money with Ben and Malcolm. Thanks to those of you who have been listening and watching. Right now, this episode, we're talking about car buying, leasing cars, ways to save a few bucks every month on that whole process.
Absolutely.
So a couple last tips we want to toss out there before we end the show. One thing that we were talking about kind of off camera that I thought I'd share with you guys. One that I've heard some old people wisdom. If you will.
Okay.
This one came from my granddad. So
All right.
he actually used to. So he paid cash for cars.
Okay.
But his strategy, the way that he would do it, is he actually would buy the new car,
Okay.
and then immediately start saving every month for the new car he was going to need to buy.
Okay.
When the one he just bought broke down.
Okay.
So I buy a new car today, 2017.
Mm-hmm.
I'm saving $200, $300, $400 a month, whatever a car payment normally would be.
Right.
And I hope it's not more than that.
Right.
And I am every single month saving toward that new car that I'm going to need to buy
In the future.
And once the one I'm driving right now, it becomes that critical period where it's like, do I keep putting money into this one, or do I just go buy a new one?
Right.
Well, now the cash is there for me to go buy that next one, and I don't have to worry about anybody's financing or anybody's terms or any of that kind of stuff. So
that's a really good wisdom from Grandpa Etheridge.
That's where I hope to get to. Like that makes perfect sense to me. And eventually I'll get to,
That makes sense. So real quick, some other ways to lower the cost of ownership. As Malcolm said, actually consider saving for a substantial down payment so you can lower your monthly amount. That's probably the biggest way that you can save on what a car is going to cost you on the front end. And even though they're not sexy, another way you can go about it is you can consider a hybrid car to save on gas. And hybrids, I imagine, have a low insurance amount, like a low insurance rate, I'm sure, because hybrids don't go fast.
Well, you get all kind of incentives too.
Yeah, there are tax incentives too, right?
Not even just taxes. When you go to buy a hybrid, and I mean, they get all the best parking spots in a lot of places you go, like new development places you go to, shopping malls and stuff.
Talking about people
50 spots reserved, not for handicapped people, but for the cars with the little leaves on the back of them. Like, I can't believe that that's the America I now live in.
It is indeed. It is indeed. Another one is you can shop around for car insurance or do what Malcolm does every 6 months and threaten your insurance carrier for a discount. So that's a really strong way to go about lowering your insurance.
You tell them you're going to leave them and let them tell you either, no, let us see what we can do, which is always what they do. Because, I pay on time every single month.
Absolutely.
And I actually, knock on wood, haven't hit anybody in however many years I've been driving. So you want to keep me. So I make my case and I just don't say anything. And just I let them come back to me after a couple of minutes and say, all right, we can take off like $5 a month. That
makes sense.
And that's perfectly fine. That's what I came for.
Malcolm stays with the threatening. That works for, you say that works for phones too. And then also one that I'm probably not going to be able to do much, and I probably wouldn't do myself. You can learn basic tasks like topping off oil, adding car fluids, and if you're a real G, you can change your own oil. So I've done topping off of fluids because that's easy. And I've actually put on the bumper of a car before on my own. Like my Prelude had a extended skirt, like the Fast and the Furious skirts, and my roommate trying to drive it.
You would be that guy.
He cracked it. Shout out to Ryan Ellis for cracking my my front bumper. But I had another one ordered from Amazon and it came, and I just figured out how to put it on.
That's like the most millennial story ever.
Really?
I wrecked my car.
Yes.
I bought a new bumper from Amazon.
Yes.
Had it delivered to my house.
To my dorm room.
To my dorm room.
Yes.
And then put it on myself.
Yep, that was it.
You are what's wrong with the American economy. That's why all these planes keep closing and shipping to other places and the elections. Dude, you are what's wrong with this economy.
It's all my fault. And of course, you can also pick up a side gig to pay for the cost tied to keeping the car so that your main money from your job isn't used to pay for it. And if you live in a metropolitan area, you can always consider going carless. I am somewhat carless now.
I'm not taking the bus for anybody.
I'm a big bus person. I'm a big bus person. And then also ride sharing apps obviously are all the rage now. So that's one way to do it. Or as Malcolm said, he's not doing, you can take the bus. So that's some other suggestions in terms of saving yourself some money on cars. And that actually brings us to the end of this episode of Manage Your Damn Money.
I hope something in there was useful.
I hope so too, because us talking about our favorite cars as kids isn't particularly helpful. But we want to remind people that they can listen to episodes of Manage Your Damn Money on iTunes. You just go into the iTunes or Apple Podcast platform, search Manage Your Damn Money. And you can also catch us on SoundCloud. Just go to soundcloud.com/Manage Your Damn Money. We always post stuff on Facebook, facebook.com/Manage Your Damn Money. And then you can follow Malcolm on social media. Where can they follow you, Malcolm?
At Malcolm on Money.
Absolutely. And you can always follow myself and Manage Your Damn Money at large at MYDM1.
Send your questions, comments, concerns, kudos, accolades, all that good stuff to info@managyourdamnmoney.
Shady comments as well, like Drew did.
Keep the shade to yourself. I will report you as spam, as always.
Absolutely. We want to thank you for joining us here on Manage Your Damn Money. We'll see you next time.
Peace.
Peace.